Alrighty, guys, welcome to the 100% podcast where we break the shame, stop playing the I'm not worthy game, and let's actually elevate our life to make a ton of money and love and emotional fame like I know who I am and all of me knows who I am. All right, let's go. So basically the point of the podcast is to break the limiting beliefs that we have to not allow abuse anymore. Because essentially the only thing and reason that we allow abuse or mediocrity is because we don't even know our own greatness. So let's talk a little bit about the weekly portion of this week called Noah. All right, are y'all ready for this? Oh, y'all ready for this? Okay, so I'm going to slightly read off Chabad.org as well as give you just some cool takeaways about the energy of this week so you can actually elevate your life in perfect order. Because the truth is everything is happening in perfect order, but if you don't really know what's going on, you can't tap into it. So let's dive right in. The Parsha of this week is Parsha Noah, okay? And I'm going to pull up the Chabad.org article that I thought I had up, which I don't see right now. So really the main significance that we have this week is something about a pre-flood era and a post-flood era. So essentially, there was a really powerful era that existed before the flood that is totally and absolutely different than what we have right now. And I'm trying to find the text-based learning, and let's see if I can bring it up. Maybe we'll just edit this out, but let's see if we could find this. Here you go. I found it, guys. All right, let's go. Work with me. Stay with me. Don't get off the mat, yo. Stay with it. All right. So here we are talking about Parsha Noah. And like I said, there was a pre-flood era, a whole different state of energy and existence, and then a post-flood era, which is the era we are currently in, the energetic shifts that we're currently in, and it's called the post-flood era. So it's basically like this time of your life where you have an awareness that something might have been different than your current state. Have you ever had that where you're just like, oh, I always thought about it one way and now I think about it the other way? So here's an example for me. I was always like pro-choice. I was like, man, choice is powerful. Choice is really important. And like, how could you take away choice from a woman? Like that makes no sense, right? Her body, her choice, her life. That is like the most basic, normal sounding statement that I think most everyone would agree on. But then I realized what it actually meant. And I was like, I got pregnant. So for my whole adult life, I was like, well, that clearly makes sense. But then I got pregnant and I was like, now I'm a mom. And now I have a lot of friends who are moms. And I've seen a lot of friends who deliver babies like way earlier than birthing. And then I felt my own baby come into my body. And I was like, oh, it's not pro-choice, pro-life. It's pro-life, pro-death. Because there actually is a living, feeling, spiritual being inside of you that you need to kill for it to not be there anymore. It's not like you just remove it, you kill it. You stop its growth, right? The opposite of growth is death. The opposite of life and growing is death. So for you to stop growing this baby that's inside of you that will continue to grow and flourish and come out into a human in a short period of time, in a very short period of time, the only way to stop that is actually death. It's actually killing. And I was like, oh, I get it now. Like for me, that was like a big eye opener because for so long I was like, choice makes sense. And it's not like, you know, you can never fight that. But then I was like, no, I understand now. Like I've seen the babies that were born early. Like they have fingerprints at I think 9 weeks. You see the heartbeat like way early. You get to check the gender like super fast, like when they're tiny little things. So only because I had my own pregnancy did I have a shift of understanding my reality, how I perceived the world, what I believed, what was like a different form of functioning. And this is not a political podcast. These are just experiences that you have in your own life where you say to yourself, like, before I went through this, I didn't really like see very clearly, or I had a totally different perspective or totally different understanding. Like for me, when my best friend passed away, it was like before Kazi passed and after Kazi passed. Like before Kazi passed, life was life, and I had my own beliefs and my own understandings. And then after Kazi passed away, I was like, oh my gosh, life is so different. Death is so different. Addiction is so different. And I had a whole new awareness of an energetic shift in reality in the realm that I was currently living in based on like an experience. So the flood, and I just want to like add one more thing, like when my brother died, like there's like when Yassel was alive and my whole life and understanding of a family unit and completion and mental health. And then Yassel was murdered. And then after that, my whole life without my brother, without them, and my awareness of a world of, you know, different forms of police brutality or lack of understanding or mental health crises that are totally misunderstood, right? And how guns are destroying so many people struggling because they don't have other tools to manage the discomfort or the fear that comes with people who are really not in control of their mind and body. So again, there are like these big moments, like what's your trauma? What's your like before and after moment? Like I thought life was like this, and then now it's like that. And then you like develop this awareness of like, oh, everything that I thought before actually wasn't fully true. And there's a whole new reality that now I can tap into that I couldn't before because I didn't have this like contrast. So Noah, Parsha Noah, is the period of history where historically there was a really big flood. And that's what we're going to be talking about. So we are now speaking on colors, on the mystical significance of the rainbow that was written by Menachem Mendel Schneerson, who was also known as the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who basically changed the world as we know it. Many presidents of all different countries would come and fly to see him for confidence and advice on how to run their own countries. Jewish, not Jewish, Christian, Muslim, people valued his intellect, his vision, and his love. So he is writing and talking about this, and we're going to go into it right now. So it literally says in Genesis 9:8-15 that God spoke to Noah and to his sons who were with him. And God said, this shall be the sign, the rainbow shall be the sign of the covenant which I am making between me, God, and you, and then every living creature that's with you for all the generations to come. Okay, so like I have designed something pretty super cool and pretty obvious. I love when God is clear and obvious. Narcissists, unhealthy people like to confuse you and make you feel stuck in situations of mediocrity by making you feel confused what the right move to do is. Should you leave your job? Should you not? Should you leave the relationship? Should you not? Right? And then confusion causes inaction. Only action breeds clarity. But if you have too much confusion, you take inaction, which means you never take the action you need to get the clarity, right? So that is a huge part of unhealthy relationships, is that subtle sense of confusion that makes us not act. But God is saying, dude, I love you so much. I am a healthy source of energetic love and flow in the world, and I am your creator and everything's creator, and I want to show you how much I love you. So I'm going to make you a sign that is very clear. All right, so he created the rainbow. The rainbow, God said in Genesis, my rainbow I have set in the cloud. When the rainbow shall be seen in the cloud, I shall remember my covenant. Never again shall the waters become a flood to destroy all flesh. So essentially God's saying, like, I made this really cool sign. It's really obvious. And I set it up in the sky near the clouds. And I just want you to know, like, this is my promise. This is my, like, energetic creator, godly love that I have shifted the world now into a different state that I won't destroy. I won't cause forms of destruction of people through a flood, which actually, if you think about it, he said to destroy all flesh. So basically, before and after the flood, God destroyed the whole world, essentially. Like, the entire living world that existed was destroyed minus Noah and some creatures and his family, right? So the majority of the world was destroyed. But if we think about it, tsunamis, which are extraordinarily godly and supernatural, still destroy tons of people, and hurricanes still destroy, and they're also a very godly force, but it's like, it's sections, it's categories, it's logistically based, and it is not all flesh. So it's just important to think that he's not like, I'm not going to destroy through water. Also people drown, also lots of crazy stuff happen, but he says, I'm not going to do it like in mass. Okay. So like when you see the rainbow, just remember There might be destruction in the world, but it won't be like a full, complete renewal and rebuilding of the whole world in generations. It's like, maybe in smaller sections. So the rainbow is, of course, a natural phenomenon. Rays of sunlight pass through water droplets that are suspended in the atmosphere, and the clear crystal-like droplets refract the light, unleashing the spectrum of colors that it contains, and then displays them in an arc across the sky. That is literally what a rainbow is. So you want to take this and be like, what? All these colors essentially come through two ingredients, two physical ingredients. So as we know, the physical world and the spiritual world are paralleled. There is a huge connection and mirror-like functioning, imaging, creation between the spiritual world and the physical world. And we can go into that at a different time. But for this sake, let's just go with what is. So the two ingredients that you need for a rainbow are light and water. Okay? So light, as we know, is connected to God. And it's like the energetic source that comes from the sun that consistently, allows things to grow, allows us to see where we're going, allows us to stay warm. And also light is like spirituality. It's a very spiritual state when people die and they go to another realm of spirituality. They say it's like filled with light. When we feel at peace, we feel light around us. When people are in a really positive state, there's an aura around us, a light. And light essentially is like a state of spirituality, of like heightened spirituality and spiritual connection to God. So that's one. And then water is a flow. It's literally like a spring. It's completely divine. And they say that the Torah, the Old Testament, is connected to water. They say Mayim is Chayim and Chayim and Torah. Torah is like water. So we have the Torah, we have water, and then we have spirituality and enlightenment and love, and which is the light. So light plus, you following me here? Light plus water in its own beautiful way creates this gorgeous, spectacular gift from God and the rainbow. So how do we apply this to our own life? There are so many ways that we can have laws, right? There's a lot of people who practice their religion in a set of laws. And the laws are beautiful, freeing, and wonderful to understand because they're truly ways to connect to God in a contained space where you're not like constantly living in chaos and confusion, not knowing what to do to how to elevate your life, and therefore taking too much inaction or, living in too much inaction where you don't fulfill your purpose and take enough powerful, goal-oriented, clear action, joyful action, right? Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha. You have to act, you have to serve God, but you got to do it in joy. And you won't know how to facilitate that joy if you don't know your goals. So the laws are there as a very powerful source, but you need the spirituality to have the simcha, to have the joy, to have the goal, to have that light. And so if you're serving God without the joy, then you don't have the light. So you might have the water, the flow of the Torah, of God, of the laws, but if you don't have the light and the love and the joy, then you don't have the mind. You don't have the light. You don't have that effervescent like gratitude to be alive while you're trying to live your best life within the laws. So you need these two massive ingredients that create the rainbow. Okay, then it goes. Yet before the flood, this natural occurrence didn't occur. So before the flood, there was never even such a rainbow. There was something about the interaction between the moisture, the water, the mayim in the Earth's atmosphere, and the light emanating from the sun that failed to produce a rainbow. So before the flood, it was actually slightly different physics, slightly different energies in the world, and the light, even when it came mixed with the water, did not produce a rainbow. It was only after the flood that the dynamics of the world that shifted created a rainbow, and that energy that Hashem, that God put into the world after the flood, that was when this newly formed covenant with his creation shifted the way the world worked, that produced a rainbow from the moisture and the light. The spiritual and the physical are two faces of the same reality. This change in the physical nature of the interaction between water and light reflects a deeper spiritual difference between the pre and post-flood worlds. And the result is that There was a difference in God's manner of dealing with a corrupted world. So let's just talk about that. We spoke about how the physical and the spiritual are basically two faces of the same reality. They're paralleled. But there was a physical energetic shift in the world after the flood. And so if there was a physical shift in the world, what is the spiritual mirror to that physical shift? And here it goes. An examination of the Torah's account of the first 20 generations of history reveals two primary differences between the world before the flood and the world after the flood, the pre and the post-flood era. The pre-flood generations enjoy long lives. So before the flood, that was sweet. Before the flood, generations enjoyed long lives. People would live into their 8th, 9th, and 10th centuries. Like Noah's grandfather, Methuselah, lived till 969 years old. His father, Lamech, lived till 777 years old. And Noah himself lived till 950 years, almost 1,000 years. And the Zohar explains that this was an era of divine benevolence. Like God was just like loving and giving, and there was so much goodness and flow in which life, health, and prosperity flowed freely and indiscriminately from above. There was no like, well, you're great, you're bad, you're stressed, you're not stressed. So like, you're going to live really long and you're not going to live really long. And there's going to be this disease. It was just like, God was so loving and glowing. And he just gave so freely of his divine energy, his divine flow before the flood, which caused people to live till almost 1,000 years. And now it's just a totally different space. And we want to go into that because divine benevolence is a really powerful existence where we can tap into at all stages of life right now. God is still divine and he is still benevolent. But sometimes we miss how to tap into that energy, which leads us into not taking enough action, not taking enough moments of gratitude, and feeling like we're not enough, that we remove our greatness in the world, kind of being upset and therefore acting out to ourselves and others. So following the flood, we see a steady decline in the human lifespan. And just so you guys know, this is on Chabad.org. It's an article that was compiled and written based on the Rebbe studies, and the title is Colors, okay? So following the flood, we see a steady decline in the human lifespan. Within 10 generations, Avram is old. He's so old at only 100, which is kind of like where we're at now. If you live till 100, you're like old. But back in the day, you lived till 1,000 and you were old. So literally, physically, people lived 1/10 of their time. And I was talking to my friend Mayan, and she was basically saying, like, even 200 years ago, our lifespan was vastly different and so much less. Okay. So besides for the fact that people just did not even live as long after the flood, a second difference is that it seems that the second difference is one that seems at odds with and even contradictory to the first. See, after the flood, the world gained a stability and a permanence it didn't enjoy in the pre-flood era. So two things that we have now in some weird way is stability and permanence. Let's talk about that a little bit more and what that even looks like. Because before the flood, the world's very existence was contingent upon its moral state. When humanity disintegrated into corruption and violence, Hashem said to Noah, "The end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I shall destroy them and the earth." And then following the flood, Hashem vowed, "I will not again curse the earth because of man, neither will I again smite everything living as I have done. For all the days of the earth, the seasons for seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer, winter, day and night shall not cease." Okay? So what we're really understanding here is that there was some form of benevolent divine flow that existed before the flood that was basically people lived on their morality, how moral they were. And now, even if people are crazy immoral, God still is saying, I'm not going to destroy people based on where they're at. And no longer would the cycles of life and nature totter on the verge of extinction whenever man strays from his God. Before, when people are so away from the flow, the way of divinity, the way of morality and godliness, There was actually like an energetic, holy crap, this is not cool. I didn't create the earth for so much violence and insanity and immorality. Let me clear that air. Let me clear the air literally through a big flood and rebirth. And so that was the flood. It was like too much insanity is happening, too much immorality, too much lack of awareness and tapping into the flow consistently. Let me just rebirth it all. Let me just destroy and rebuild. But God says, I've now created a world where I'm no longer functioning on that level, on that idea. So I'm going to repeat that. No longer with the cycles of life and nature totter on the verge of extinction whenever man strays from his God. The post-flood world is a world whose existence is assured. Like, y'all, you're more in a state of teva now. Like, before the flood, you were in a state of divinity and divine benevolence and godliness. And if you strayed from that, it was based on your morality. But now it's like there's a permanence. I promise that there's more like nature in the fact that what you do will cause a consequence in your life that is separate from me just taking my energetic divine flow in and out of your life. I hope that made sense. The post world, okay, so it's assured, a world that is desired by his creator regardless of its present state of conformity to his will. So right now, Hashem's like, dude, I love you no matter what. And whether you screw up or not, or connect to me or not, I promise I'm going to just stay here with you as is. And the guarantor of this assurance, God saying like, yo, I'm with you no matter how and what you do. There's a symbol of this new stability. And that stability, that God giving more flexibility to your lack of morality or morality, that's the assurance that he gives with the rainbow. Like, I love you so much that I'm going to allow you to falter and fail, but my love for you, how lovable you are, is constant. The rainbow is something that was created in the world as God's promise to say, look, I get it, you're human, and you're gonna do things that are immoral, and you're gonna screw up, and crazy stuff's gonna happen to you, and you're gonna do crazy stuff, but I promise you, the love that I have for you is permanent. The love that I'm going to give to you, no matter what you do, no longer is it based on your morality to destroy and rebirth, but I'm just never going to remove it from you. I'm always here to love you completely as is, and you are fully, fully lovable. So that is the stability of the rainbow. And before the flood, guys, I want you to get that, because this is a really powerful sicha. It's a really powerful divine Kabbalistic wisdom that comes down through Chassidut from the Rebbe. And it's a powerful understanding that there's an era of transformation and empowerment. Because before the flood, we basically were like stuck in our own ways. It's like we can have divine flow and like be creative and get into that like glory of God that he was just like giving us abundantly in benevolence. But if for some reason we tapped out of it, then we lost it and we just went to immorality and we couldn't really reconnect. We couldn't really have this state of like low to high. And then if we overcome our lows, have transformation, resilience, and empowerment. Because if you truly take your traumas and you use them as your like, I am so strong and resilient and God is so good, no matter what happens that is bad seemingly, there's an empowerment and a strength and a vitality to life that did not exist before the flood. So the stability of God's reassurance of his love, regardless of where you go in your life, is actually the symbol of the rainbow. It's not like y'all screwed up. Remember how bad you effed up and I was going to destroy the world and check it out. The rainbow is actually God's divine and gorgeous sign that I've created stability in a world that is separate from your morality, unlike before the flood, where a rainbow did not even exist, based on the light and the water and the moisture and the perfect combination. That same combination that happened pre-flood created nothing. That combination now after the flood, literally physics changed. The world physically and spiritually changed, and now we developed a rainbow. Before the flood, a man's role in creation lay primarily in reacting to God's involvement in the world. So before the flood, our ability to create and what we did in the world was literally in reacting to Hashem's involvement in the world. We were just like, yo, God, what's up? And we were just like connecting to God. He was in his divine flow, so much benevolence of godly energy, or we disconnected from it. The flow of divine vitality into the world was plentiful and uninhibited, which enabled man to attain great material and spiritual heights. This is before the flood. Before the flood, we were like, yo, in God's flow whenever we were there. And literally it was plentiful, uninhibited. And therefore we were able to have super high material and spiritual heights and wealth. But these achievements were merely man's acceptance of what was being bestowed upon him from above, rather than the fruits of his own initiative. So guys, now the whole world is shifted. Now, if we want to really get back into that like plentiful, godly benevolence, we don't need to just be like, our fruits of our own initiative is what's going to create my life, right? This whole concept of control and surrender, that's literally the energy we're in now.